Last lesson we talked about parallel lines and transversals, and today we're going to talk about the converse of parallel lines. Remember, a converse statement is a conditional statement that switches the hypothesis and the conclusion of the original conditional statement. So if we're looking at the converse of parallel lines, right, then we're going to look first at the converse of corresponding angles postulate. Okay, and what the converse says, that if two lines are cut by a transversal and corresponding angles are congruent, then the two lines are parallel. Okay, so what we're doing in this lesson is trying to prove that these lines are parallel, rather than given these lines are parallel, find the angles. Okay, so we're given the angles and we're going to prove that they're parallel. So here, corresponding angles, remember A and E, they match up, right? They're going to be on the same side of the transversal and in the same spot on the parallel line. So A and E, B and F, D and H, C and G. The converse of alternate exterior theorem says that if two angles are alternate exterior and they're congruent, then those lines are parallel. So A and H are alternate exterior. If those angles are congruent, we know that these two lines are parallel. Same for B and G. The converse of the alternate interior theorem says that if two angles that are alternate interior are congruent, then those two lines are parallel. So if C and F are congruent, or if D and E are congruent, then those two lines are parallel. The converse of same side interior angles theorem says that if two angles on the same side and the interior are supplementary, then those two lines are parallel. So if C and E are supplementary, or if D and F are supplementary, then we know that these two lines are parallel. Okay, and remember, when we're talking about parallel lines, it has to be the two lines that the transversal is cutting. And remember that they have to be on the same line in order to conclude congruency. Okay, so if we're talking about 9 and 14 being supplementary, then we can prove that these two lines here are parallel. Okay, we can't do anything necessarily if we're just given 9 and 3 are congruent. That doesn't really tell us about these two parallel lines, because 9 is an angle on a different transversal than 3 is. So for each given statement, we're going to determine which lines, if any, must be parallel. Okay, so the first one that we're given is angle 6 and angle 8. Okay, so if we're given angle 6 and angle 8, then we know, okay, first of all, they are on the same transversal, okay, so that's good. And if we look here, they're kind of in the same spot, aren't they? 6 is below the top line and to the left of the transversal. 8 is below the bottom line and to the left. So these are corresponding angles, right? And remember, the converse of corresponding angles theorem says if those two angles are congruent, then these two lines are parallel. So C and D are parallel. So if we're given this, we know that C and D are parallel. Now, if we're given angle 2 and angle 16, okay, then we know for this one, we're talking about this transversal. So we're going to be looking at these two lines right here, because this transversal crosses these two lines, A and B. Okay, so if we look at 2 and 16, right, they're both on the outside of these two lines, okay, and they're on opposite sides. So the converse of alternate exterior angles says that if these two angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. So we know that A and B are parallel. Now we're given 3 is supplementary to 14. Okay. If 3 is supplementary to 14, okay, then these are same side exterior angles. Now, we don't really know yet. There is a theorem out there, but we haven't learned that yet, okay? So oh, wait a second, but they're not, right? Because, sorry, lost my train of thought. Okay, angle 3, okay, is supplementary to angle 14. I'm sorry. Right, so there is a theorem out there for same side exterior angles, but we have not gone over that one. Same side exterior is not something we know. So for right now, we can't really prove anything for C, okay? Now D, we're given that 10 is supplementary to 11, okay? Now 10 and 11 are both on this transversal right here. They're on the same side and they're on the inside. So the converse of same side interior angles says that if they're supplementary, then the two lines that they cross are parallel. So we know that C and D are parallel. Okay, now we want to determine which segments are parallel and justify your answer with a theorem or postulate, okay? So here, all right, let's look first, let's extend these two lines right here. So we're gonna look at this line and this line right here. Okay, so we want to prove that these two are parallel. So let's look at this transversal right here. Okay, so this should be supplementary right here because these are both same side interior angles. So we, in order for these two to be parallel, 109 plus 66 has to equal 180, okay? Now, obviously, looking right here, right? I mean, if we even just look at the 9 and the 6, right? We're looking at 175, okay? So we know that U and V, UW cannot be parallel to VX, all right? So now, let's look at these two parallel lines, or these two lines right here. So in order for these two lines to be parallel, we would want 114 plus 66 to equal 180, okay? And if you add those up, you do find that they do equal 180. So we know that line WX is parallel to UV because of the converse of same side interior angles. On this last example, okay, we're going to say, what must the value of X be if C is parallel to D and the measure of angle 13 is 2x minus 3 degrees and the measure of angle 9 is 50 degrees, okay? So we know the measure of angle 9 here is 50 degrees. Okay, and we're looking at the measure of angle 13. Okay, so if we look at 9 and 13, these are alternate exterior angles. All right, so we know that alternate exterior angles have to be congruent. So that would mean that 2x minus 3 has to equal 50. So from here, all we're going to do is just solve for x. Okay, we're going to add 3 to both sides. And that's going to give us 2x equals 53. And then we're going to take 53 and we're going to divide it by 2. And that's going to give us 26.5, okay? So, and remember here, it's not asking us what angle 13 is. It's asking us what x is, all right? And so for that particular problem, x is 26.5, okay? All right, that is it for the converse of parallel lines. Really, we're just looking at the opposite of everything, okay? So remember, if you need help, post to raise your hand, K-mail your teacher, send a Yahoo IM, just whatever you need to do to get help, okay? Make sure that you're doing that. Have a good day.